All right, here we are in the clinch with Greg Nelson and Andy Gran and Nat McIntyre, where we tackle and grapple everything martial arts. All right, we're bringing this to you with PedroSauer.com for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ThaiBoxing.com, EricPaulson.com, Inasanto.com, and ZebraAthletics.com. And again, the Academy at theacademymin.com.
All right, cool. So today the topic that we wanted to discuss is the real life lessons that we've learned through our martial arts training, both competing and training. And I guess when we started talking about this, the first thing that I thought of that I learned was, I think it's described in Think and Grow Rich as the power of autosuggestion, or also positive self-talk, that if you repeat something enough times in your head, you start to make it a reality. And being in those first initial times doing Thai pads and never have ever experienced that level of fatigue, and then taking control of the voice in your head and saying, no, you can do one more, or no, you can do two more, and just a little bit more. That experience, I think, really started to harden that part of my character and allow me to have a lot more willpower, I think, and make a lot of my dreams reality. But do you guys have any similar experiences?
Well, it's really funny because just today with the MMA fighters, I brought up the exact same example about when we used to do Thai pads all the time and being super tired and how to sub-vocalize in your own brain instead of, man, when's this round going to get over? I'm so tired. I'm this and that. Instead, being able to change that to, okay, I got to keep my hands up. Got to pivot my feet. Got to drive through and start to change the mindset. And then, doing that over and over as it became a habit, the same things came into play when I was going through my MRIs when I was in tons of pain with my cancer. And my brother would say, okay, this is just 3-minute round. You can do 3-minute round. You've always done 3-minute round. And he just related everything back to training and rounds. And it's kind of put that mindset right there.
I was thinking about this today as well, that voice in your head telling you either negative things or positive things. And I feel like I was thinking about this just in some of my first fights and some of the first losses. What was my mindset before I went into it? And then when I look back, my mindset, I can see that I wasn't fully confident. And there's just nothing more powerful than being with that much stress sort of looming over you going into a fight that you care about. You can just that voice in your head is so loud and is so important to know and to notice. Is it negative or positive? Because that is going to shape you, and that is going to shape it's going to shape the outcome of whatever you do.
It's going to shape the reality of your life.
Absolutely. There's no doubt.
I've been reading this book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow, and he talks about in there the self being divided into two systems, System 1 and System 2. And System 2 is the one that has to process things more slowly and recall from memory formulas, and System 1 is the more like the impulsive, intuitive, automatic responses where your thoughts come from. I guess your thoughts come from both, but it's a pretty unique distinction. And with training, your ability to control System 2 and the voice in your head, it's pretty clear that higher level performers have learned this unique ability to talk to themselves and create great change in their life and other people's lives as well. But another thing that occurred to me in thinking about this topic was real confidence, right? Like martial arts gives people real confidence in their life, and you can't fake confidence. You have to know that you can do something. And when you're training all the time and you come in and you're like, I could never do that, or you look at things that look really difficult, and then as you've practiced for a while, you're able to do these things. Like once you see that your achievements, it gives you this great confidence that, oh, if I can do that, I can also do this.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people have taken the, sort of the proof of learning from inside the martial arts to outside the martial arts.
Skill building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skill building definitely breeds confidence. There's no doubt.
You just think about the entire process of how we do the martial arts and the martial arts that we do practice, especially like jiu-jitsu. Every day you're going to come in and you're going to face unique challenges, all right? And it's not always going to be positive. It's not always going to be great, but you work through it and you're still able to get out of that class knowing that you learned from your mistakes. You're going to be better because of the things that you tried. And again, having that no ego to realize, hey, if I'm going to get better, I got to try something new. I got to take a chance. I got to take this risk.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you get caught. But when you get caught, you realize, okay, what do I do next time? So you learn this process of failing and then figuring out. Failing and then figuring out. And that's the whole life of jiu-jitsu.
For sure.
And that's
so humbling.
Yeah, it's humbling. And that's like everything. If you want to try anything new, well,
You gotta put yourself out there.
put yourself out there. There's going to be a failure and you figure stuff out. You're going to be a fail and you figure it out. And that's just the process. And it's,
That's the great thing about jiu-jitsu. It's so honest because you can't really, you can't kid yourself. You either got submitted or you didn't. It worked or it didn't, and then you have to deal with that failure, and it doesn't even really seem like a failure anymore because you learn from it. It just doesn't have the same power.
It's strange how it builds your confidence, though, in life to do things that are extremely difficult and achieve those difficult goals. And then, like, well, if I can do, like, for me, I never would have made it through college without martial arts, right? Like, college was a lot easier, actually, when I was training super duper hard because I had the confidence, well, I can sit here and read all this stuff and go through the pain and the suffering of being bored with maybe this material that I'm not super interested in, because that's way easier than doing Thai pads,
Yeah.
right? Or running and doing the bridge. We have a bridge run where we do a pull-up across every rung on the bridge. So another interesting lesson I think that comes out of martial arts is the power of belief. And I almost liken it to like a placebo effect. But once you believe something so deeply, you make it real. And and there's all these examples of people being shot up with morphine, for example, and it's actually water, and they actually feel it.
Sure.
And I've had some of that where I just willed myself to believe something, and made it real. And I don't know if you guys have the same experience, but the power of just sort of like using autosuggestion or chanting to yourself in your head until you believe it 100%, and once you believe it, you can make it a reality.
Well, that was something that started for me, even in high school. I had probably a progressive gymnastics coach who really got into all that stuff, visualization and talking to yourself and believing. Because in gymnastics, it's the same thing. You have to try something for the first time that potentially you're going to get messed up. You're on a high bar, you're flying, you're going to do a release move, and either you catch the bar or you fall 9 feet onto the mat and get crashed. So they have to have this mentality. And I remember when we'd go up and do something and you'd fall, he would say, get right back up, let's do it again, and not give you the time to start thinking about the negative thoughts. And you got up, and he also told me, as I was wiping out on this one release move over and over, to go home and just focus on the move, visualize. I remember him saying, visualize as much as your brain will allow you to, because he knew that I was just like a complete random synapse in my thoughts just flying all over the place. But I did that. I was really wanted to get that move. I really wanted to accomplish that. So I focused on it a lot. I came back on a Monday without touching a bar the whole weekend and almost nailed the move. And right there, it changed my whole thought process of, wow.
That it works.
It works.
Yeah.
The mind is powerful. And it helped me in my wrestling. It helped me in jiu-jitsu. It helped me in good times, bad times, realizing that, hey, I can get through this. I've done many things before that I had to fight through, and I fought through this. I fought through that. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to never give up. And, obviously everybody knows, the cancer story, but that was a huge part of it, is knowing that, man, I've got through all this other stuff. You just got to fight and never give up the fight. And even though it was super bad and there was, the negative thoughts, but believing that I was going to survive was a huge thing.
Well, think about the momentum that carried over. So you created the momentum going in a positive direction. If you do the opposite and you created the momentum going in the negative direction, you're just going to go down and down and down, and those thoughts are going to snowball in either direction. And I would say that the negative thoughts are easier. I think where there's a default mode that our brain goes to a negativity. Not for everybody, but I think a lot of people default on the negative side.
I think everybody does, actually, to be honest.
I honestly think
you have to train yourself to not.
The ants,
but why is
automatic
that?
negative thoughts. Well, that's what they talk about. It's automatic negative thoughts. I don't know what
why
that
is it the default? I mean, why do
Well,
we?
it's easier. It's easier to
It takes your brain runs on energy, and it takes effort to
fight that.
Right.
to solve hard problems.
Right.
Do
Well, I
difficult
think
things. And
how do you recognize? I mean, I think people they're thinking without even knowing it all day long, and if you're not recognizing that you're thinking, then you don't know if you're negative or positive, and you're putting yourself in possibly a really bad position by continuing this negative thought if you don't even realize it. So that's an important point too.
It takes energy to change the direction of the voice in your head to
Recognize it even.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing too. When we're coming back to training and doing, simple things, we know that even in weightlifting, in calisthenics, in endurance training, you have to continue to press on even when you're tired and even when you feel like you don't want to. That's the only way you're going to develop.
Yeah.
And so the mentality is, I could do the same thing with these thoughts as I'm doing with my physical body. Yeah. And that's kind of how I started looking at things a lot more. It's like, man, if I push myself physically, why can't I just do the same mentally? If I'm getting tired physically, now I need a spot. That's like going, hey, I'm having some problems. I need some help. So it's the same thing. It's like I look at so many things in that way now that before I kind of segregated it, but now it's like, not so. And I've been going to a lot of, last few years to Brendan Burchard and to Bo Eason and these other things. I'm going, this is just the same as training. It's just now it's just focused on a totally different.
It's on mental stuff.
It's on mental stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad did a marathon once, and part of the training he did all the different runs, and one of the runs they told him it was 22. And then when he got done, they were like, yeah, it was actually 24. And the theory was to show you that your belief, if you believed that it was 22, it was easier. And that when you found out that it was actually almost a full marathon, it was only 2 more miles to go, you would realize how much more you could do. And I've had a lot of experiences like that in martial arts where I found out that I had a lot more power in myself because of what I believed.
Well, he had that belief, but he also was backing it up with a lot of hard training. So there's a ton of physical training.
The confidence can't come without the actual work in the practice room.
For sure.
We can talk all this stuff about mental training.
For sure.
But if you're fighting or you're competing, you will never have that knowledge of your techniques until you do them in practice a lot.
The amount of physical work that it takes to get in the ring or the cage is really staggering. I mean, if you think about it. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much physical work it takes to do, 5 5-minute rounds or 5 3-minute rounds. It's really amazing how much work it takes to get your body to do what you want it to do.
Indeed. So the other topic here that I had thought of was the formation of our habits. And I grew up with a lot of good habits, but I grew up with a lot of bad habits too, like everybody. And, through this rigorous scheduled daily practice of physical training and being around other people that are focused on their goals, a lot of other habits in my life immediately faded away because they were replaced by these good habits, right? And then now I realize, I can change my habits. It takes effort, but if I want something different, I have to do something different. And that was another big game changer for me that I got out of the martial arts. Was like, oh, if I don't like something about my life, I can just create a new habit that's better. And I know there's a ton of people in our academy that have struggled with all types of bad habits, you know, but through the training, they have found an entirely different life from this. So
Yeah, I think the habit for me, be it athletics, be it martial arts, the habit of training, the habit of working hard, the habit of pushing through fatigue, the habit of not giving up when you're tired, the habit of just getting up early when you know it's going to benefit as opposed to sleeping in, all those things over time, I mean, without thinking about it, just became a normal part of life. And I always talk about this, when all of a sudden it was really needed, all those years of just getting up, doing what I had to do, doing the things I didn't want to do because I knew I had to do it because the guy next to me was doing it, the other guy next to me was doing it. Man, it paid off. It paid off dividends. And now, as I'm kind of shifting gears in a different way, which is, not physical, but I'm trying to write a lot more. And I find myself, it's the same struggle. It's no effort. There's no physical effort, but mental effort is the same.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, now I gotta just push through that. Even if I don't get the amount of words I want to do, I still gotta push. I still gotta write. I still gotta make the action. I still gotta set that time. And for this amount of time, I'm gonna sit here and try to write. And even if it's a bunch of crap that I'm writing, I can fit. I'm gonna find something out of that, and then use it. It's the same thing, but now it's a mental as opposed to the physical. But it's a routine, it's a habit that I've just kind of shifted.
Yeah, and once you're in the routine, though, it becomes less the energy. Once you've created that
The momentum.
the new routine, it's easier and
It becomes
that,
normal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just get stuck in their habit that they develop maybe as a teenager or in their early 20s, and they just stay in those habit loops for years and years and years.
Yeah,
And
creating those
never
routines.
realizing, like, oh, if I wanted something different, I can change my habits,
Right.
and it will take some energy, but I can do it.
Yeah, I think you have to start small with things like that, and to create that momentum. I think this idea of momentum is super important because you can't just do it all at once. You have to build it and keep pushing forward, and you just get stronger and stronger in those ideas.
Yeah, for me, I start my every single day. I have a specific routine that I follow, and it's like, okay, I did that. I already started my day doing that. I can do the rest of my day. I've already started my day following the routine I wanted. Now it becomes, like Andy said, easier and easier because that's just what you do. It just becomes a normal thing, and now that shapes the rest of my day then, and it really helps me out.
Yeah. Another thing that I had realized is, like, we're like a microcosm of the world here at the Academy. We have people from all over the world with just smashed in here, all focused on martial arts. And now with, like, the increasing polarization in society, I think people have a harder time with, like, just conversing with people and talking. And we've always had such a wide spectrum of society in here. It's been one of the great things here that I've learned is, like, hey, you can talk to anybody, about anything. And most people, if you're looking at them face to face, are pretty cool. And especially in a place like a martial arts school, it's a pretty unique value to sort of get to know people from other, tribes, essentially. I mean, I think the history of humanity is tribes, and, maybe tribalism isn't the best word to describe it, but you get to know so many different
all these
people.
goals. We're sharing a bunch of the same goals, so that breaks down a lot of barriers.
Yeah.
I think.
But I'm super introverted, I think, and it's taught me to be a little bit more, a little less introverted, I should say, and just get to know all types of people. And I did grow up in a pretty, multicultural city around a lot of different type of people. But now when you're like, okay, now we're gonna grapple, we're gonna hold pads. It's a different type of relationship, and you get the opportunity to realize, like, oh, I can talk to anybody about anything. I'm not the kind of person that can just talk to people about anything anywhere out in the world. And so doing the martial arts has given me that lesson that, like, oh yeah, people are just people wherever you go. And obviously I've traveled and got to know people all over the world, from different countries and stuff, in Brazil and Japan and Thailand and Europe, and it's a great way to kind of get to know people of different cultures and stuff too. But then maybe outside of the martial arts even too, you realize like, oh, people are just people wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found that out, especially when I started again going to these different conferences, where I was like the only person that did like martial arts, and I put myself on purpose in those things because it was like I got to get out of the rut of doing what I do every single day around the people that I'm with every day, that we can talk about the same things every day. Now I'm around people, 1,000 people, that were just fascinated to the fact that you can make a living out of doing martial arts, and they were from all walks of life. I mean, some of them were really successful people. Some of them had no clue why they were there at all. They just wanted to do something different. And for me, it was like, being in front of people teaching and doing seminars and teaching something that I was very comfortable with. I was like, well, I can do the same thing. I just relate it to whatever's going on. And then I started to see that what was being talked about was like, wow, that's the process of learning martial arts. It's a process of what we do already. And it became a real easy segue to talk to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the other thing that occurred to me that was a really strong life lesson is that I think the biggest thing that holds people back, like the biggest fear, the two biggest fears I should say that hold people back are the fear of failure and the fear of rejection. And man, you gotta fail a lot when you do jiu-jitsu. And if you've ever done competition in martial arts, or maybe you feel like that even in practice, where you feel like you're under the spotlight and you're wondering like, what are people going to think, or what if I don't do it right, and you have all that fear kind of bundled up and anxiety bundled up inside you. And when you constantly overcome that all the time in martial arts, you start to lose that fear a lot. It doesn't work anymore. Your brain gets tired of thinking that way.
Sure.
And that's another piece of this puzzle I think that's really important for people, because I know a lot of people out there are incredibly affected by their own fear of failure and fear of rejection. And that stops them dead in their tracks from getting after the things they want to get after.
You got to figure the most successful people have failed the most.
And they
just
learn,
keep going.
But they don't fail in the way that people typically fail. They look at failure as like, oh, that was a good one. Let me figure out the next way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they fail. As they say, they fail forward.
Yeah.
Right? They fail, and then they figure it out, and they go forward. And I think for me, a big part of that, too, was I relate it back to gymnastics. Because to me, like, gymnastics and martial arts are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're doing stuff that's for the first time you're doing it. And I remember bringing it up, and my daughter goes, yeah, it's fail, fail, fail until you get it. And then you get something harder, and then you repeat the process, and it just keeps going. Well, that's what jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah.
That's what any kind of competition is. That's what wrestling is. If you want to be good at shooting takedowns, you got to get sprawled on a lot and just get smashed until you start getting comfortable being under there and start building the confidence, saying, man, I can shoot right through this. I got to go through it. And the same thing will be, I remember Professor Peter Sauer talking about attacking from the guard, right? And well, I didn't want to attack because the last time I did that, the person passed my guard. And he goes, well, so what?
Mm-hmm.
How are you ever going to get anything if you don't ever try it? Mm-hmm. And therefore, what did that give you? Another opportunity to escape the crossbody. So don't look at it as, oh, no. It's like a training opportunity. I always talk about that. You get into a bad position, instead of going, oh, man, I'm in a bad position. So, this is a unique training opportunity. I'm going to be here anyways. I might as well just get used to it. And pretty soon, that just becomes, again, something that you can bring to the rest of your life. It's like, wow, this is kind of a messed up situation. Well, guess there's another way to figure this out. Work through it.
What would you guys say to somebody who feels like they're really in a rut and can't get out of this negative cloud of thoughts and sort of feelings about
chop wood, carry water?
Yeah, sometimes that's it. You just gotta, if you get back to the routine that you had beforehand, even though it's not easy, but it's something that carried you through, you got to find your way back to it. And I don't think there's a real easy cutout way to get through it, because everybody has different mentality, different way to go through things. But sometimes you just got to break it up. You just got to do something new and just push through. and it's not the easiest thing, but it's the whole thing we're talking about. You're failing, you get back up, you do it again. You fail, you get back up, you do it again.
You have to believe in what you're doing. So like if you're a student who's being taught stuff by their instructor, they have to have faith in what they're doing,
Sure.
and they have to show up and just do the thing every day. And over time,
It's going to take some
You're-
effort to
you're
be
gonna-
positive. You
Takes
can't just
effort.
allow.
It's a trained
Yeah,
it's
you
a
have
trained
to.
response. You got to train your brain to erase the negative and put a positive instead of it. It's something you have to
Yeah.
physically, mentally train.
for some people, and I'm one of them, it takes a long time to get things. But once I get them, they're mine. For other people, they learn things really quickly, but they tend to not, be as serious. They get they have the talent to learn the technique, for example. They get really good, and then it's just because the problem was easy, it's not very satisfying, and it doesn't stick. The knowledge doesn't stick with
Sure.
them. But when you're, super unathletic like me, and then you have to learn moves, like you remember those moves because it was so hard
Yeah.
to get them.
Yeah.
And so time is the factor there, I think, with what you're thinking of. You have to just commit the time
Yeah.
and trust and have faith in your instructors that you're going to get there.
And the biggest thing is, again, starting to create a routine that forces you to get out of that rut a little bit. Because if you put yourself back into it and back into it and back into it, you know that that's becoming the routine. At some point, you have to decide, nope, I gotta break this routine
You
up.
have to recognize that you're even doing that.
Yeah.
I think some people don't even recognize it.
Well, I think everybody has something that they do that they either suppress and don't want to look at,
Right.
or they just or you can give up on it, or you just got to work through it. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's no, you got to
Well,
figure it out.
These arts kind of sort of cut you wide open and show you what's going on there, because jiu-jitsu is really unforgiving. You have to deal with that failure. Muay Thai, you can't really hide behind anything.
Mixed martial arts, wrestling, anything where you're competing against another person, judo, boxing.
Yep.
There is no, you just can't, you're either going in and you're doing well or you're not. And then you have to think about it. If I'm not doing so well, how can I do better the next time? What do I got to do? And so it just becomes that process. And that's the same thing mentally, I think, with, or any kind of task that we're going to do, or at your job, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I didn't do so great today. What can I do tomorrow? One thing.
Mm-hmm.
One
Do you
thing.
guys have any sayings or stories that you've heard from any of your master teachers like Ajahn Chai or Pedro Sauer or Dan over the years that have really affected your life outside the school? For me, the one saying that Ajahn Chai is known for saying is "I can do, you can do,"
Mhm.
and that one really stuck with me. But do you guys have anything that springs to mind, stories or sayings that you really like?
I think, with Professor Sauer, when he said, wow, it's just another unique training opportunity. It's not, oh no. And I see so many people get their guard passed or something happened where they just go, oh, and you can see they just get bummed out. I'm like, why? Just kind of just work through it. It becomes a creative opportunity. And I started looking at that as within all
You
areas
have
of my life.
Yeah, you got to trust your training partners. You have to
Yeah.
know you're part of a team.
But at the same time, it's like when something goes wrong or goes askew or whatever in life, you just got to look at it and go, all right, this is a unique training opportunity.
Yeah.
I got to figure this out. I got to work through this, and we're all going to run into them. We're all going to run into something.
The one that that actually, Andy, you said to me, you said the only way to get through hell is to walk through it.
Yeah.
And that's the training mindset, is just
Yeah.
to keep going. You're going through something hard, you just got to walk through it. You got to go through it however you can. So
man, you can't.
I thought that was good. That sometimes that had an effect. That just had an effect on you. Like a simple saying, just it clicks.
Yeah.
And I
That's a good one.
remember James Cook one time said to me, I was super nervous before a fight. It was like really early, and he just goes, "You just don't have to be that nervous." And I just went, oh, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have to be that nervous.
Yeah,
It just
man.
clicked.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
great.
That's a good one. All right, so just to recap, the real life lessons from martial arts are the power of autosuggestion, positive self-talk, confidence through achievement, the power of your own belief, the power of habits, changing your positive habits, and reaching out and meeting people from all over the world, from outside of your group your identity that you feel you're part of, and then overcoming the two greatest fears in life, the fear of failure and the fear of rejection. All right, so signing off. If you guys like the podcast, make sure you guys share it on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Rate us and review us on iTunes. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can find us on Twitter at MMAA Combat Zone, and on Facebook, The Academy MN. And yeah, we're good. All right.
Good, better, best. Never let it rest.
Over and out.